Imagine sitting at 35,000 feet. You're cruising comfortably in a 500-ton metal behemoth, sipping a drink, watching a movie. Suddenly, the impossible happens. The air beneath the wings seemingly vanishes. The invisible pillars holding this massive machine in the sky snap. In an absolute fraction of a second, the plane loses 100% of its lift. What happens next isn't just a terrifying thought experiment. It is a violent clash of physics, aerodynamics, and human engineering. To understand the chaos that follows, we first have to understand the delicate cosmic dance that keeps a commercial airliner in the air. A fully loaded Boeing 747 or an Airbus, a 380, can easily weigh around 500 tons. That is roughly the weight of 250 standard cars or a small fleet of blue whales hurtling through the sky at 500 miles per hour. Airplanes don't stay up by magic. They stay up because of a beautiful balance of four forces: thrust, drag, weight, and lift. Lift is generated by the wings slicing through the air, creating a pressure difference. The air moving over the top of the wing moves faster than the air underneath, creating lower pressure on top. The higher pressure underneath pushes the plane up. But what if that lift instantly drops to zero? In the real world, an aerodynamic stall happens when the angle of attack is too steep, disrupting airflow. But a complete instantaneous loss of all lift would require something truly catastrophic, like the atmosphere suddenly turning into a vacuum, a sudden and total structural failure of both wings, or an unprecedented meteorological anomaly. If lift drops to zero instantly, gravity becomes the undisputed king of the cockpit. The moment lift vanishes, the 500-ton aircraft stops being an airplane and instantly becomes a projectile. Inside the cabin, the transition is violent. Because the plane is no longer being supported by the air, it enters a state of unrestricted freefall. For the passengers and crew, gravity effectively drops to zero. Anything not strapped down: laptops, coffee cups, luggage, and anyone not wearing a seatbelt instantly launches toward the ceiling. It is a terrifying illusion. The plane is falling faster than the objects inside it, making it feel like you are being thrown upward with massive force. The flight deck becomes a chaotic storm of flying manual binders, tablets, and startled pilots lifting out of their seats until their harnesses catch them. Down on the flight deck, the pilots are hit with a sensory overload. The sudden zero-G sensation triggers an immediate adrenaline spike. Alarms begin to blare. The master caution light flashes red, and the stick shaker, a mechanical device that violently vibrates the control column to warn of an impending stall, goes wild. A 500-ton plane has massive forward momentum. Even without lift, it doesn't just drop straight down like a stone dropped from a bridge. It moves forward on a ballistic trajectory, carving a terrifying arc through the sky. The pilot's immediate hardwired instinct will be to pull back on the control column to try and raise the nose, but in a total loss of lift, pulling back does absolutely nothing. With no airflow generating lift across the control surfaces, the wings are useless. The plane is now completely at the mercy of its weight and its remaining thrust. If the engines are still running at cruise power, they are still pushing the plane forward with hundreds of thousands of pounds of thrust. But without lift to balance the equation, the aircraft's nose will inevitably begin to pitch downward heavily. As the 500-ton mass points toward the Earth, it begins to accelerate rapidly. The airspeed indicator climbs at a dizzying rate. Within seconds, the plane enters a high-speed dive. This is where physics starts to tear the aircraft apart. Airplanes are designed to handle incredible stresses, but those stresses are engineered around the assumption that the wings are supporting the weight of the fuselage. In a total loss of lift followed by a vertical dive, the aerodynamic forces changing across the airframe become wildly unpredictable. As the plane plummets into the thicker air of the lower atmosphere, the parasitic drag increases exponentially. The wind, rushing past the fuselage, sounds like a continuous, deafening explosion. The sheer kinetic energy building up is staggering. Is recovery possible? In aviation, standard stall recovery involves pushing the nose down to regain airspeed and restore smooth airflow over the wings. But remember, our scenario dictates a total, instantaneous loss of lift capability. If the wings are still structurally intact, and the loss of lift was caused by a massive, violent microburst or wind shear, the pilots can theoretically recover. As the plane plunges into denser air, the engines screaming at full throttle, the air flowing over the wings becomes thick enough to generate lift once again. The pilots would have to carefully, smoothly pull out of the dive. Pull too hard, and the G-forces will snap the wings right off the fuselage. Pull too softly, and the plane impacts the ground. It requires nerves of steel and superhuman precision. However, if the lift was lost because the wings suffered a catastrophic structural failure, the outcome is entirely different. Without wings to eventually catch the air, the fuselage becomes an aerodynamic cylinder tumbling through the sky, completely unrecoverable, until it reaches terminal velocity. While this thought experiment sounds like a living nightmare, it highlights exactly why modern aviation is the safest form of travel in human history. Airplanes are built with massive redundancies. A commercial airliner never just loses all lift out of nowhere. The wings are flexible, engineered to bend to impossible angles before braking. The systems are backed up by secondary and tertiary backups. Pilots spend hundreds of hours in flight simulators training specifically for the absolute worst-case scenarios, learning exactly how to handle extreme loss of airspeed and stall conditions long before they ever sit in a real cockpit. The physics that keep a 500-ton metal tube flying safely through the air are robust, proven, and guarded by some of the smartest engineering on the planet. If learning about the extreme physics of aviation gives you a rush, make sure to hit that like button right now. It really helps the channel grow and allows us to keep making deep dives into how the world works. What is your biggest fear when flying? Or what aviation mystery should we tackle next? Let us know in the comments below. Share this video with your friends, your family, or anyone you know who loves aviation or science. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on all notifications so you never miss an episode. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next one.